why sometimes it's challenging to figure out what's happening. So
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
no
yes.
audio.
Okay, you can hear me. You should be able to hear me now. How many people did you have in earlier? Okay, so as I was just mentioning, we are live. We are working from our homes thanks to COVID-19, and we are trying to make this work as well as we can. But so far, so good. We've had two really amazing streams with people from all over the world. The first one being in a time zone
Sean,
for sort of
okay, audio
Asia.
again. Sorry. Yeah.
No, the audio is working. I think now is all good. Um, I think there's just a I think there's just a bit of a delay, um, and should be working. Okay, okay, okay. All right, so that's good. We're working from home, but we are going to bring you a demo in virtual reality. But what we wanted to do is get a feel for where people are from, what they're interested in, and then we might be able to give you a little personal demo of something that might help you guys whilst using Tvori in your own practices. So if you have any questions, pop us down a question in the link box. And before we jump into the main demo, we will run through some ideas and some examples of how the technology can be used. I'm just going to go I'm just going to throw over to Inga, who's going to tell us really quickly in her elevator pitch, because she's been practicing this for a couple of months now. We're going to throw to her to give us a really quick overview of what Tvori is in 15 seconds or less. Just throwing her in the
Yes.
throwing her under the
So
bus here.
Sean needs these 15 seconds just because he needs to put on the headset finally and take you to Tvori so that you can see what's new in the timeline. So you definitely know that Tvori is prototyping and animation software, and the whole idea of this stream today is to make sure that you got familiar with all the new features which are out there in the new timeline. We did our best to make the UI not too complicated, even though it became more functional. But unfortunately, probably some features are more complicated now to figure out how to use. There are some video tips in Tvori, and your feedback is essential for us to keep improving both the new timeline and all the new features we are working on today. And today we will feature looping visibility, working with multiple keyframes, changing the type of interpolation, and more. If you have some concrete questions, make sure to post them here. So, and I'm super happy to see some very familiar avatars and faces and comments here in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it's number third attempt, but the first time we do this type of live streams. And Sean, thank you very much. Jump into,
No,
yeah.
no problem. I mean, that wasn't quite 15 seconds, but it did buy me a number of. Sorry, Inga, I shouldn't bust you for that. It was good because getting the headset on means that I am effectively blind, so I want to make sure I've got all the settings set up. I've got Tvori working before we jump straight into that. Now, Inga will jump in and ask questions from the audience, but then also help me along the way if I've forgotten something. But for all intents and purposes, I'm going to jump in the headset and stop me if I'm too quick. Sometimes I breeze through things. If you have any questions specific, let us know. Cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump straight in to Tvori. And I'm going to set the headset on. Just device my brain into the headset. And my controller's over here. Okay. And just turn my controllers on. Okay. Oh, I'm going to try not to hit the microphone with the controls. That has happened throughout the stream today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give everyone a quick overview of some of the features in a brand new scene that is empty, just so you get a feel for the technology. Now, if you're not familiar with Tvori and this is your first time using or seeing the technology, most of you have probably seen this before because we're talking to a lot of talented people out there who are already jumping into immersive animation. But for all intents and purposes, this is a open platform, a stage that will allow you to be able to animate a CGI world with your controllers and your headset. So whilst there are platforms like Blender, Maya, and many other applications out there, this is an immersive animation tool that allows you to pick up objects and animate them inside virtual reality, which can be a lot easier to work from a speed perspective, but and also so that you can gauge the size, the speed, and the scene without needing to look through a 2D screen. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you through some of the new features and then some of the sort of more professional features that are quite exciting that I use quite frequently. And what I've done here is I've set up a two camera shoot, and you can see that there are 2 cameras and there are 3 lights. So very simple 3-point lighting. On the yellow button, you'll bring up your menu. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring in, actually we'll do this first, we'll bring in a shelf, and this is where all your assets live. Now if you're going to import assets, you can click the import folder and that will bring up your desktop folders. You can go to Poly or Google Poly and you can bring in assets from the internet, and then you've got packs and these are all standard features within Tvori. These are optimized models that will allow you to bring in assets really, really quickly and drop them into the scene. So that's what we've done there. We just dropped it into the scene. Now, if you wanted to add a camera, you can go into here and add another light if you want to. But let's not do that. Let's throw away the shelf. So now we've got a character in our scene. Again, we'll bring up the menu with the yellow button, which is our button right there in front of me. If I can point to it there. And we're going to open up the brand new timeline. Now, I'm in Tvori Pro, but you can also use the standard version of Tvori, which is on all the standard platforms, and that also has these same features. And straight off the bat, you'll notice that the timeline is fairly different to how it was in the past. I'm just going to adjust my headset really quickly. There we go. And so what you can do is, if you want to see what's going through the cameras, we're going to go to the show camera screen, and you'll notice straight away. Let's just swap that camera around. Right away, you'll notice that the ergonomics of the actual timeline are much better, much cleaner, much easier to be able to use. So, and the reason for that is you're able to take it down and it bends, and you're able to put it up and it will flex as you need it to. So, like a monitor on set, you're able to kind of put this where you need to be. There's also the ability here, in this feature right here, to pick up the monitor and put it where you want it to be, and that way you can work in an ergonomic position with your hands down or your hands resting on your legs, and you're able to move the timeline back and forth without needing to necessarily to reach or stretch yourself in any way, shape or form. So I'm going to throw that camera away because that's got some leftover features on it that I had from the last stream, and I'm going to put a new camera in. Okay, throw that away. The next thing you'll notice is I'm just going to go back to these little return screen sections so that we can see that. The next thing you'll notice is that immediately you can see that we are in frames between 0 and 388, which is just an arbitrary number that I put in there. Or you can tick this little box and go to seconds. So if you're familiar with working with seconds instead of frames, so you're a video editor or you've worked previously with non-linear editing software, you'll see that this will count the seconds in a 24 frame per second rate. Click it again, goes back to frames. So let's keep it to seconds. You've also got the ability to go for keyframes to complete an animation, or export, which is where the export features for models, videos, and various purposes. But that's everything once you've done. You also have the ability to flick between 2 different cameras by clicking these camera icons one after the other. So camera A, camera B, camera A, camera B. And you'll notice that I actually renamed these cameras, which you can do for most assets in Tvori. So this camera has automatically got a name called Camera 2, but I'm going to click on it with the context menu, and then I'm going to rename it. We're going to call this Camera or Cam B. Enter. Okay, so now if I click back, we've got A Cam and Cam B. Alright, the naming convention needs some work, but we've got A Cam, B Cam. Okay. So on this part of the timeline, you've got the ability to play. That's pretty self-explanatory. You've got the same two animation modes as in previous versions of Tvori. You've got real-time animation, which is this ability to go into a character, I like to stand behind the character so that I can pretend to be the character, and you can scroll the timeline back to 0, and then as soon as you grab the hands, it's going to record that motion that you've just done with your controllers. So it's kind of like a simple version of motion capture. So we're going to grab the hands and we're going to do a walking motion. You can look at it in real life, or you can look at it on the monitor. Now I'm going to turn the animation off, go back to the start, and hit play again. And we're going to watch from the different camera angles. A bit of a music video thing going on here. Okay. Obviously, keyframe animation is from point A to point B sort of style animation, which we'll go into in a second, and I'll show you a little bit more with animation of the legs. Keyframe animation is when you're having more control, and can also work quite well for robots' movement that needs to be smooth and steady versus something that needs to be more organic. And as you can see from the real-time animation, we're able to do something very quick that is otherwise an organic movement. If I was trying to do a robot movement, that would not work for real-time animation, because real-time animation is the same as my movement, and I'm not a robot. Unfortunately, I'm not a robot. The next couple of options here talk specifically to where keyframes are being placed. So if you hit on full body, every time something on the puppet or the character that you've got is moved, every time you move the hand, it'll set a keyframe for the hand and then all the other parts as well. So you'll have a constant reference of keyframes on your timeline for the whole body. If we change it to body parts, it's only going to set only going to set a keyframe for the one body part that you move from point A to point B, or in real time, I suppose, as well. And then finally, on this top section, we have the different types of keyframes. So we have linear, curve, and hold keyframes. Now these are different ways of easing and jumping between different keyframes. So if you want, curve has an automatic element of easing in it. Hold jumps from one position straight to the other, like stop motion. And linear is a literal move from A to B with no easing. So when you set this setting to curves, every keyframe that you set manually will be a curve keyframe. So I'll show you how that works specifically. Please do stop me if I have any questions. How are we doing, Inga? Because I'm a little blind.
So have to unmute myself. So we are doing fine. I just want to remind people who are early supporters of Tvori to make sure that you can jump into the Pro by submitting the special form. And the people who are new users of Tvori, or you're just like watching this for the first time and spend some time in starter version, for everyone who attends their streaming today, we have a very, very special offer. Just make sure to reach out to me. But again, if you used to use Tvori before March 27th, 2020, you get your Pro for free. So just make sure to reach out as well. So.
Exactly. So you can't see it in VR, but on my screen there is actually a section that says, let me see, is the version number underneath here as well? Oh, here we go. So I have purchased Tvori quite a few months ago, and I said I've got the version number, and it says early adopter. So anyone who has Inga was just saying, anyone who previously owned the software in the days where we were still trying to get things moving can get a free lifetime subscription to the Pro version, which allows you to do slightly more work than the free version. And the full paid version is for enterprise clients who are using it in an enterprise in an environment where they're using it for work. If you are an indie developer and you're looking at buying this for the first time, Inga can help you out with that there's a better price for viewers on the stream today. Okay, so let me jump back into some of the guts of this timeline here. On the side of the panel, I'm going to get a little closer because I realised that it's actually quite wide, the shot that you see. You'll see these different layers. Now, Tvori already had layers, but a lot of the time it was harder to keep your important layers visible. So what we're enabled to do now with this type of layer system is if you select if we select a layer, you'll see that it says selected. There's one layer and it's the B cam or the cam B. Now, whenever you need to animate something or work with one of the layers in Tvori, you have to select it in order to be able to see its keyframe animation or its real-time animation. And that's to stop a very busy scene from having thousands or hundreds of tracks, which you'll see is a problem very quickly in something like After Effects, where you have many layers, very hard to see. So the idea is that the animation is hidden on each of the objects. So every object has its own timeline. But to combat the ability to keep the cameras or the puppet, let's use the puppet. Oh, actually no, we'll stay with the camera because it's just one. What we can do is we can go up to these options here. Now these are brand new features within Tvori, and some of you have asked about what exactly these features do, and that's what we're going to show you off right now. So the first feature you might want to look at is the Move to Favorites tool. Now as soon as you hit Move to Favorites, it takes it out of the selection menu, which is only pops up with your item. And you can see there's 0 selection, so I'm going to reach out and select that camera, and it's going to come up with that timeline there for that camera. And if I click off with the index button, it disappears, and now I can't access that. But I can still access camera B because it's in favorites. So it's a way of shortlisting your favorite or your most used assets in a scene to be on the top of the timeline and always visible. So that's really good when you've got a big scene with lots of assets that you're not animating and one or two that you do want to animate and keep them visible at all times for things like timing. Okay, so the next couple of features are very handy. So we've got next to it to the left, we've got Go to Objects. So if you've got a scene that is quite large again, and it has lots of objects, so you've got cameras in multiple places, and you don't know where the cameras are, you can always go to the Go to Object, and that will show you where the object is with this line. And then if you click it, it's going to take you to where the asset is. So if I hit the puppet, it's going to take me straight towards the puppet and put me near it where it needs to be. So that's a way of kind of teleporting to your assets. The next couple of features are about copying and pasting keys. Now, if you've got some animation on a camera and you want to duplicate that movement to a second camera, you can use this tool here, click it, go to copy, and then go to the second camera and hit paste, which isn't there because the camera's over there. So that's pretty self-explanatory. I won't demo that. That's a copy and paste feature. It's similar to a lot of other applications where, like After Effects, we can copy and paste keyframe information between different assets on different layers. The next two settings are equally as exciting because what we can do is if we go to Puppet, we can see that trying to work out if this is an old puppet. Have I got a second puppet in there? No. Oh, okay. Okay, that's my bad. Okay. So what we can do here is, I noticed that there are some keyframes that I sent accidentally when I was talking about the keyframes over there. And what I can do is I can just clear them by going to remove track, remove, remove track, remove. So that means that the hips, and now let's look at right feet, remove. There's no keyframes on that. There is no keyframes now on that character. Oh, and there's another character doing something weird to it. That's from obviously a previous version. So we're going to select this character. We're going to favorite that puppet. That's why there was another puppet, because this is a save project from the previous stream. And then we're going to go add track, and we can add an animation track for any of the objects within the scene. So if I was to set a keyframe for the left arm, you can either do that manually, so I'll show you what that means. You can go to keyframe mode, that means it's recording. We can set the keyframe to be wherever we want it to be. Actually, I won't do the legs because they already have animation. The arms, they already have animation. So let's go to this one here. We're going to set it up to there. And then that's going to automatically create a keyframe. So let's have a look. You can see that the right foot has a keyframe set to it. If I scroll, and then I move it back to here, it sets a keyframe. But what we can also do is, if you want to set an additional version of this keyframe, as in a way similar to a hold keyframe, you can click the set keyframe button, and it will set an additional keyframe. So there's just multiple ways of being able to set and edit the keyframes. You can do it via moving the object. You can do it by setting a manual or remove key with this keyframe set, or you can set up an animation track, and then you can go in and animate it, just so that you know what needs to be animated and what doesn't. So if you're working with multiple animators, potentially you want to set up some of the tracks that you want animated before there is any animation on the track, just so that the person who picks this project up next can know what you think needs to be animated, versus giving them something with no information on it whatsoever. And you can also always go in and rename these to please animate this next if you really wanted to. The most exciting thing for me, there's two more exciting features that I think are really important for animation, especially with keyframe animation, is the looping option. Now looping, let me turn that off quickly. Looping turns what was quite a laborious animation style, which is to hit play and you see that movement of that leg. It goes back and stops and doesn't do anything. So that means that every single time you want this leg to go back to there and then go back, you have to keep setting keyframes for it to animate from point A to point B, and then you have to add another keyframe to have it to go back to point A. So in this version of Tvori, instead of having to set manual keyframes for every movement, if they're looping movements, you can go into loop on, and instead of having to set that extra keyframe, you can scroll back to the start, hit the play button, and it will just continually loop the two keyframes that you have, which is really cool because it means that instead of having to make it a complete walk cycle, you can make half a walk cycle and then repeat it over and over again, or one cycle of the walk cycle and then repeat that over and over again. So what I'll do is, it does automatically stick back to there, but we kind of do want to go into here and then just duplicate that so that it does actually animate back smoothly. So it'll go from frame 1 to frame 2 and back to frame 1 nice and smoothly. There you go. And that just animates forever and ever and ever. Previously, these three keyframes would have had to be duplicated across the actual timeline before you would be able to get this sort of movement. So I've done 3 keyframes for indefinite amounts of animation, which is really cool way of doing it. The next thing you can see, so let me do while I've got this out here, I'm going to scroll this back to here, and I'm going to take this foot, I'm going to move it to where that other foot was, I'm going to move it to there, and then I'm going to duplicate that first move, and then hopefully I will turn on the loop, and then you end up with an awkward but pretty quick walk cycle. In addition to that, if you set these to curve, what you can do is you can take these curves and pull out the keyframe so that you end up with a nice round movement that. Now, I think every time I've done this, I feel like I'm making the character moonwalk. So let's see if we can make the character moonwalk. Because I always do it backwards, which is not a big problem because you can just move the keyframes. But what you can see there is we're able to do this nice round movement and get a more natural... Oh, there we go. That's almost... I kind of like that. It's a happy accident, that is, Inga. That's what... Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to select the character. And then I'm going to go to full body. I'm going to stick on the gizmo tool so I can see my movements. Maybe I'll move it down a little bit just so he's or she is on the floor. I'll move her there. And then at 4 seconds I'm going to go in. Oh, maybe she needs to be a bit higher than that. I'm going to move her back and up, and then on the first frame I'll just make sure she's not through the floor again, just moving that up, and then I'm going to move that scene this way, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the whole scene shorter by dragging it back down to about 3 seconds. And let's see if how that works. Let's go to camera A. It kind of looks like she's walking backwards. Let me see if I can do it a bit. Maybe the move has to be a bit quicker. Turn on the loop. So there you go. That's actually one of the better walk cycles, if you can believe it, that I've done quickly on automatic demo. And then what you can see there is a very quick walk cycle that happens to move from point A to point B.
Sean, I'm sorry, there is a question here we have. So
yes, of course.
About looping. So just is there an option to loop and then end the loop? So could you show that? So
can you loop and then after 3 times stop looping? I mean, that's a question for you, Inga. Is that I haven't even thought of that. Is that something we can do?
So it will be possible like soon, and yeah. So we push the update tomorrow, but right now you create the looping either for the whole puppet or for the subtrack. So and then it's like going through the whole animation that you created for the subtrack. Not like visibility when you have a particular like time frame. So, but yeah, this is something which.
So it's something on the horizon. I'll show you. I'll show you something in a second that has a sort of a glimpse of that. I'm just trying to load into. Oh, here we go. So let's put a nice something that everyone's pretty familiar with now. We're going to put a coronavirus in there.
Sorry, I was had interruption in sound, so wanted to finish my actually response. So today is yeah, it's. Am I still on?
Bad.
Okay, on, right? So
be,
yeah,
yes.
So right now it's not possible to end looping, but this is something we might add soon. So
okay, so Inga sort of talked about it, brushed on it really quickly about what they call visibility. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just adding a whole bunch of duplicate versions of the coronavirus. I'm going to group them just because I want them to all appear on all of a sudden. And so let's say, for instance, this character is going to, she's going to moonwalk or backstep herself into this cloud of coronavirus. But we don't want the coronavirus to be there the whole time. We only want it to appear like a monster. So what we can do now is if we select the object, you can see that objects come up. And then what we can do is we can add a track, and then you go to visibility. Now visibility is kind of like, if you're thinking about After Effects, it's kind of like the transparency tool or the ins and outs or in and out points. And hold on. I'm going to add that to favorites because it's my favorite feature. That's the second time I've said that joke, and I'm sure it kills. But I can't hear everyone laughing, so I'm just going to expect that that's what's happening in everyone's retrospective offices or homes. So what you can see is when you add visibility, it comes up with this blue timeline. Now that is basically your in and out of when this is visible. So these coronavirus strains are going to appear only when she gets to about there, and then they're going to disappear. And then I'm going to hit. We don't need to loop that, I'm assuming, because it's linked to this object here. So now it's going to be invisible until it gets to this point here, and then it's going to be visible for a moment of time, and then it's going to be invisible again. So we're going to hit the play button. And then I'm going to lock the timeline to the camera. And then it's going to appear. Oh, I'm not sure if that's my graphics card maxing out. Oh, okay, alright, yeah, okay, cool. I'll just have to make that visibility a little longer than I thought it would be. Appear. And then, because what's happening here is because the pop-out animation is actually relatively short, let's have a look. You can see that the animation is actually only ends there. So I'm going to make that shorter, and then I'm going to pull the timeline in, and then this should be there you go. And then if I want to stop that from popping, I'm just going to have to cut it a little quicker. There you go. It appears. And then what you can do is you can go into here, copy, and then paste, like I said before, copy, paste. Where's my... I'm not sure if I have screwed with it there. I'm just going to remove it. I'm going to add a visibility. Ingo, can you remind me how we are adding multiple in and out points to this? Is it just copy and paste? You there, Ingo?
So I'm here. So could you repeat your question?
So we were doing multiple points in and multiple points out for visibility. So you could have visibility pop up twice. Actually, I think my graphics card is having a slight hiccup right now. So that's probably what was happening. So Dima showed me that there was a way of being able to have multiple points where things are visible, and then they disappear and they appear back on the same timeline.
Right, if you go, so could you stretch?
Is that a copy and paste question?
Yes, but could you stretch a little bit, because I don't see like the clip mode for that visibility, so...
Okay. I think I'm just going to repair Steam, because I think that all the streaming today has made Steam crash today. This is the first one of the day, so we've done pretty well actually. I'm just going to exit Steam and then relaunch it. So Inga, you have the floor right now. Tell us a little bit about some of the work that people have been doing with Tvori, specifically in the sort of immersive and prototyping worlds.
Yeah, so we just have to be, 1 second. Yes. So we just have to be focused, and that's why we try to work with the B2B companies, and it seems like there is a value of using Tvori in particular when you create for VR and AR rather than for the flat screen. And that's why we have some features in our pipeline which are more related to design and prototyping and some triggers for interactivity, but it's long term. In the meantime, I was about to pose the question. Um, could you please post here what would you like to see during the next live streams, like to go deeper, look at some particular feature, or vice versa, be very high level? And so, do you think it's valuable to have live streams like this one? And yeah, just because we are doing this more or less for the first time, and we want to see if there is a need and demand for these streamings. And Sean, if you for the visibility to make the multiple visibility uh, points, or how you call them, on one
Yes,
subject.
yes.
So just in the empty space, you have to set the key.
Okay, okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just trying to get Steam back up, which it will do, but my machine is had the absolute runaround today, trying to work as much with streaming and VR and everything like that. So it should be up momentarily, and I'll do a last little bit of demo before the end of the stream. Guys, if you have any questions, now is a great time to ask while I just um, load up this
Yeah, so
program.
while there are some questions, yeah, demo for AR prototyping, definitely yes. So we have some more like life hack approach to do the AR layer when you can assign some objects to be in AR layer through the context menu. But the very new approach, which is much more magical, is coming shortly when just like you use it as a locker tool, you just color the objects which should be, or you say assign objects which should be in air layer versus the real-time objects. And also we should have some better approaches to simulate the AR field of view for different VR AR glasses, so HoloLens and Magic Leap. You could also use the virtual camera, assign it to have the mobile phone go for
Cool.
mobile AR. So we can just have a dedicated AR prototyping streaming, but probably after we have this magical pointer for assigning objects to be in AR layer. But you can already use it today. Once again, you can use this with a context menu, which is not the most elegant
Cool.
way.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So potentially this could be an interesting way of being able to prototype almost like an emulator for VR in VR, which could be quite cool. I've actually got the program to run up again, so I think I might jump back into it. Is that okay with you?
Yes, please jump.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to go back into full screen mode, and I'm going to cut straight into. I'm going to show you some of the features that I haven't gone through really quickly in the next 10 minutes. And this is an example scene that I've made. Some of you may have seen this pop up on the Tvori feed or on my Instagram account. And this is a little 2-second looping animation that I've made in Tvori. All the assets that you can see right now were made with Tvori, with the Tvori assets within the object shelf, with the exception of the COVID-19 spores and or molecules and the Tvori logo. So everything here is default. It's I quite like to work with the default settings, mainly because those default settings are optimized for Tvori. So if you're importing assets that are not optimized, you're putting them through things like Mixamo, there's always going to be a chance that that VR as a whole will take quite a lot of resources out of your computer. So we're always trying to look for ways of using low poly models, especially where this is a concept, and trying to show the idea of an animation really quickly. And then that way you really get the most sort of robust performance out of your computer and out of Tvori. But most of the bottleneck happens to be in the graphics card that you're using and the size of the files that you're using as well. So that's just a tip that I recognize quite a lot with my students, is that real time is its own beast, and working with real time assets is different to working with post rendered or non real time. I'm not sure if non real time is the right way of saying it. So, without further ado, I'm going to pull in the timeline, and I'm just going to show you this really quick little short that I made. Well, my controllers are going wild. I think it's because that's it. I think it's because my space is very. I've got to work on the reflections in this little office space. So what you'll see here is we've got two cameras, and one is the perspective of a COVID-19. So I'm going to go back here. So it will loop just the camera perspective. So this is what the COVID-19 will see as it chases after someone down the street. And then the second camera is a infinity move. It's a dolly move through the streets, and you can see it kind of wipes past these English phone booths. I'm just going to move this timeline so you can see it in Tvori. And the character runs past and flicks back. So it's a 2-second loop. And what I've done here is I've done exactly the same process as I showed you before, which is to have the hands move in an organic way using real-time animation, and then use the feet to be as kind of examples of how you can use keyframe. Ooh. Yeah, I think that my computer's been on for about 10 hours now, running Zoom, OBS, live streaming, camera streaming, and multiple applications. So it might be getting a little hot right now. But what you can see here is as the assets are all linked, you've got cameras linked to a character, you've got lights linked to cameras, and then you've got a scene in the background with animated elements that are just literally moving between 2 points. One of the last things I'll show you, which I think is very cool, if I can get my controllers to behave, is the ability to be able to cut between two cameras. So to be able to have an animation, you create a locked camera duration on one camera and the same on the second camera. And then you move up to this little, let's go up to here, up to this little camera icon. And using your controller, you can hold let me have a look. Hold the menu and go to on end, select next. So which means on the end of this timeline, when it gets to 60 seconds, it's going to go to the next camera. Now you can choose to do the same thing and go on end, or you can have it loop, or you can even move the order of the cameras. So then now this camera goes first and the second one goes next. I'm going to go up and go on end, and we'll go select next instead of loop. So that means that we're able to go back to the start and watch our animation, and at the end it's going to cut to the second camera. So what we have now is an immersively made 3D animation with multi-camera editing inside of it, which I think is incredibly powerful and is incredibly fun and useful for things like virtual production, planning out a set or a film. It's good for planning out a scene or a cut scene for a game, and a very interesting way of being able to animate something once and then have multiple cameras, make that scene a bit longer and get different angles, and then when you render it out, it all comes out in one file, which is very, very fun. The last thing I'll show you as a key feature before we jump into any questions or anything else, if you haven't seen this already, on the cameras you actually have these kind of more professional tools available to you. So not only do you have the ability to lock the horizon, which means you can't have the camera wobble from off the horizon, you can move the zoom and the focus, so that'll move your camera in a bit more. And then the field of view, what you'll see is as I move it, it goes green. And that's basically just showing you what is in the field of view, or the focal view. This next features over here are really exciting. So we're going to enable the post effects. which now work really well versus earlier versions where you had quite a lot of bloom. Now you've got an amazingly robust lighting system inside of it that works really well. And what you'll do is you'll see the aperture. So this is going to tell you how much of the scene is going to be in focus and how much is not. So let's go to just the car, and then what we can do is we can change the focal distance. So as the camera moves, it's going to hold that distance. So if I go just to that one character, or the car and everything behind it. So I'm going to go to something a bit more sort of wide and open. There you go. And that works, that little feature there, that field focus distance, is exactly the same as a tape measure on a film set, which measures how far something is away, and then it gives you the ability to be able to pull focus based on the measurement, which is very cool, which means you can get kind of focus pulls if you really need to. So you can focus entirely on the background. Let me see if I can do that.
So while you're looking for that, so for some reason I can't post answers anymore in the chat. I don't know if they have the limit number of possible. Yes. Oh, yes. So that's why I have to answer now like loud. So there is a question about that. In the old version, it was possible to change recording speed. So yes, you're right. In the previous timeline, you could change the recording speed. It's not possible with the new timeline now, but it will be possible with all the improvements we do for the real-time animation. And I've already mentioned clipping and blending of animation. It all goes with the real-time animation. We are working on it, and speed recording will also appear approximately the same with that real-time animation update. So I actually typed.
So what's the speed recording? Can you just elaborate what that means?
The speed record. So you were able in the previous version to change the speed of recording, like to speed up and slow down the recording on a timeline.
Oh, okay. So ×2, ×3 recording speed.
Yeah.
Like as in, yeah.
So
or are you talking about frames per second?
Yes, I mean FPS.
Oh, okay, all right. So that's just but there is an ability you can animate it. So let's say, for instance, we're talking 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second. You can ignore this number here and then just animate it to 30 seconds. 30 frames, 60 frames means 2 seconds, because currently on 24 frames per second, it will say that it is 2.5 seconds, but in American NTSC format, you will get 2 seconds out of 60 frames. You can go to export, and then when you do export the window, I'm not going to press it now because it comes up outside of VR, which will eventually change as well. You can export it with 30 seconds. So whilst 30 frames per second. So whilst this number doesn't change currently, you can export with different frame rates currently. So you just have to keep that in mind, that for every 30 frames on this timeline is 1 second. And it just means that this seconds section is incorrect for people working on 30 frames. If you're working on a film ratio, it'll work fine. Okay. Well,
yeah. So there are more questions, and I already typed a big answer, but it's not. So
that's all right. I'm going to pull the headset off. 1 second, unless we have any questions specific to.
No, I think I can take most of them. So coming to importing of skinned mesh from Blender, you should be able to do that. So it's strange that it didn't go through. So make sure that you check the recommendation on the learning page of Tvori, that you.
Yes, that's a good segue.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Here's the learning page.
So coming to move tool on the mesh strokes, as we call them, or brushes, as you say. We plan to evolve and work more on the modeling tools inside Tvori. So not the #1 priority, but something which is important, so that you can really have some more precise modeling and shaping in Tvori.
So I think the point there is that's definitely an exciting idea as well. The tools that they have currently are really good for making geometric objects. So I've made mountains and a number of environmental designs previously with that. But I think the team are really focusing on animation and usability because there are some amazing tools out there already that are very compatible with Tvori. So something like Masterpiece, Creator, and Motion are very easy pathways for voxel-based design, and we have some really powerful, really amazing artists already out there using Masterpiece and what's the other one? I've forgotten it. Medium, Oculus Medium, to create assets inside of Tvori. So it's not that we don't want to do that or they don't want to do that, have that feature within Tvori. It's just that because there are other formats out there already that are very robust and well established, the thing that's powerful and unique about Tvori is its ability to animate and tell stories. And obviously those tools will get better as they already have in time. If that's not too bad of an answer.
Yeah, so animation is still a heart of Tvori, and this is what makes us different, for example, from other spatial design tools like Microsoft Maquette, for example. So that's why I just want to repeat that the speed of recording for real-time animation will be back with a new real-time and clipping mode. And of course, it's super helpful when, for example, you already recorded a bunch of your real-time animation and want to add a piece so that you can speed up. And what else do we have here?
I can't seem to see the questions, to be honest, because my phone's not keeping up. That's a good question. So just while Inga finds those, I'm just going to transition back to the Tvori support page. If you didn't catch that, that's learn.tvori.co. It's their official hub for instructional videos. And there is a surprising amount of content on there that gets updated quite fairly regularly with every release. The team are very proactive with doing that. But then also there is a Tvori support page on Facebook, which again will help you getting answers to questions from the community and from the developers directly, which is one of the main benefits to having a license for this software, because these are independent developers, not backed by Amazon or any of these big companies which like Adobe or anything like that. So every time you ask for help, you get a response from the developers personally, which is something that's very unique, and we want to try and support the developers to continue to do that, and that's where you can get the most value is from these hubs. So learn.tvori.co, check it out, and then the support hubs are also very powerful.
On Tvori support, unfortunately, I can't type answers to your questions, but make sure to post them in Tvori support. I'm very sorry if we already you posted something in support group and we haven't came back so far. We actually working non-stop, but sometimes just forget to check the Facebook support group. So keep pushing us, and we apologize if the response time is too long.
You're very responsive. Let me see if I can pull it up really quickly while we've got time. While you're still there, can you talk about what's planned in the future for the VR Experience Export? Did you see that?
Yeah, so VR Experience Expert, it's available today, but now the expert is not like polished, and when you export, the size of the file is too big because we export all the resources from your stuff folder, which is definitely not optimized. So tomorrow I hope tomorrow, but not the day after tomorrow. So if you do not find any major bugs, so tomorrow we plan to release another update with really improved expert of VR experiences and a little bit modified expert panel. So yeah, it should go better, optimized, and your feedback is highly welcome on that.
So we have Meteor Station VR Studio asked specifically about visibility. They missed the visibility demo. So I'll just go over that really quickly. I'm not in VR right now, but we will eventually have some... Do we have some support material on that already? I feel like there is a video somewhere.
Yeah, for visibility on our Learn page, there are kind of very precise videos on how to add the visibility to the track and how to have multiple clips for visibility on one track and so on. So, and how to extend the time of the visibility track and make it shorter or longer. So if you can't figure out, then come back. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so the this video will be available online. There are 3 streams that we've done throughout the day, so you can skip through and see multiple versions of the same thing, or potentially you might be able to just pick one, the best one. But the visibility, just really quickly, the visibility option comes up when you add a new layer, which is by pressing the plus icon on one of the layers on the timeline, and then it comes up with some options. Very similar, looks very similar to the context menu, and then that one of those options should be visibility. So that's basic. That's going to add a blue timeline to your existing asset, and then you're going to be able to slide those ins and outs points to to affect when the object is on or off camera, or visible or invisible, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helps. Let me see if there's any other questions. Do we have anything else coming in?
I think there is a question here about maybe I'm doing something wrong. I have a character jumping into a moving train, but when she grabs, yeah. So yeah, it's not you, it's us. So it's not close to not possible doing that in Tvori right now. I tried linking, yeah, and grouping with no success. So yeah, so it's just not possible to do it that way. Can you talk about
that So there's always workarounds as well. So there are some amazing artists out there currently producing animation, doing things that both myself and the team haven't seen done with Tvori. Mm-hmm. So things like special rigging systems, special uses of the locator, which is that weird multiple direction all locating object, which is in the tools. So lots of people out there are doing some interesting things. So please do ask questions on the Tvori support page on Facebook, and you might get an interesting answer from someone who's found a workaround. Lots of applications out there have lots of workarounds as well that are just as creative as having a feature sort of built in. So the team really do love getting pushed to create new tools, but workarounds are really good too, I think.
Yeah, just the final comment about this linking to the moving train. So that would be awesome to do. But
I cut you off.
But the link today is just like the very simple logic of linking objects to one another. So it's not rigging like in keyframes. So that's why, as if you would be setting some keys for this linker tool, which is not the case today. So it's not possible to do with a moving train. And it's not easy to figure out how to do it. So, yeah.
Is that moving train? Are you talking about different carriages of a train and it bends? Is that what we're talking about?
No, there is a character jumping in a moving train, but yeah. So the hack would be to have 2 puppets, one in the train, another on the platform, and through the visibility to change the puppets. But this is like
okay, that's a great workaround. I mean, yes, sure, it'd be great to be able to have multiple links and everything, but I mean, in After Effects, for instance, I keep bringing up After Effects, but there's some After Effects is very robust, but also there's lots of interesting hacks that people have come up with. So having multiple layers of the same thing stacked on top of each other and having them turn off and on to appear or reappear is very standard as an option. So yeah, have a play with it, and when you get to roadblocks, try and see if there's a way around the roadblock instead of waiting for something to kind of clear the rubble, if that makes sense. That's a lot of the time, that's exactly what I do. I just try and work around the problem to do the best possible version of what I was imagining with the limitations. Sometimes limitations are great, but also the team do listen to what you're saying and try to implement changes and bug fixes and new features exponentially.
Yeah, so thank you everyone again for jumping into this live stream. We will try to yeah, to address the questions you've mentioned for the next streaming. Um, yeah, good.
Yep. So, yeah, okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play us out with the promo video for Tvori. If you have any questions, again, let us know. We're more than happy to have a chat. We're going to go back over all the comments on social media and on this video and see if we can contact people personally. And we hope to do more and more of these in as many different time zones and topics as possible. But thank you very much for having us and for staying up late or getting up early, whichever one it is. It's a hard world to get out of bed to sometimes. So this has been a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of interesting learning for live streaming on YouTube with VR running all on a laptop. I'm actually running a laptop, so it's been exciting.
Stay healthy, everyone. Thank you, Sean, very much. And
all right,
yeah.
thanks very much, guys, and talk soon.
Bye bye.